Today's episode of Slot Shot Podcast is brought to you by Uncle Dano's Single Jug Lot Hooch. Were you a little too sober entering your last Bluegrass Festival? Did you wake up naked next to a river not feeling sick enough? Uncle Dano's Single Jug Lot Hooch can get you out of those kinds of jams and into the right kind of jams. Just like improvisational jam music concerts, no two jugs of Uncle Dano's Hooch are exactly the same. For the right kind of maybe I should reach for that cop's sidearm energy, pick up a jug of Uncle Dano's Lot Hooch. Uncle Dano's Lot Hooch. It's all one song.
Welcome back to Slot Shot Podcast, a hockey podcast. We're back in the studio, back again for another week in the National. It's going global, so we got global stuff to talk about. We've got a coaching change to talk about, the first of the year, and much more on tonight's agenda as we pick back up on Wednesdays, where we apologize for that, but we'll be posting always Thursday morning from here on out. Thanksgiving plans to be determined. We'll get there. Boys, the breaking news of the weekend: Jay Woodcroft out, Chris Knobloch in. McDavid's former junior coach, a guy that McDavid's former agent, who's now the pretty much GM to step into this situation, a guy he's talked about for a long time, steps into this Oilers locker room with actually Paul Coffey in there as well, to kind of right the ship of what this Oilers disaster has been. You know, yes, fresh off of 2 wins at this point after defeating the Islanders most recently, and then also defeating, who was it? Kraken, yep. Thank you for my Saturday's pick. The Edmonton Oilers, you know, we've talked a lot about it. We've talked about their sluggish start. You know, it's important years with McDavid and Draisaitl becoming free agents in the near future. The clear and cut sign is, you know, Edmonton is trying to keep Connor happy, and it's the Connor show. You know, you got Ken Holland, who was kind of saying he talked to all the players, and then you got Jackson, who says no, this was an internal discussion. So I mean, a little bit of a shit show on the mic from the Oilers in terms of announcing things, but the Edmonton Oilers go in a different direction. Jay Woodcroft, their highest winning percentage coach in franchise history, is gone after basically a season and a half. Boys, what do we got?
Just one quick thing on the press conference they did, and you know, I know obviously, right, like Chicklets is now playing a very pronounced role in hockey media, and the caption there was like two guys saying opposite things, and I just want to call this out because, like, you know, locally in Boston, right, we just changed GMs, and we've got this nerd coming in. We've been back-to-back nerds being introduced as new GMs, and the baseball nerd press conference is so orchestrated and obfuscated and full of BS, PR, business school language that it's really frustrating, and it doesn't really say anything, and it's useless.
It's just a script, basically, at this point.
It sounds like a creative writing class at an Ivy League school because they all went to Yale. And so then, you know, to juxtapose that with the hockey front offices, right? These are hockey people. These are not polished PR executives. These are all hockey people. And so I think from a PR standpoint, yeah, it wasn't super crisp. And I'm not going to complain about it because, you know, I don't think that it was contradictory elements. You had Ken Holland saying that he spoke with the players. And then you had the president saying, you know, they didn't consult the players. And I think that those two things can be true. They definitely had meetings with players as things were going very poorly, and they wanted to meet and get a pulse from all the players. I think that's a standard process, or as they might say up in Edmington, Alberta, process. But I think that's a standard process when you're, you know, in trouble like they are. So they meet with the players, they get their notes. Sounds like every single player had Woodcroft's back. They all liked him a lot. I don't think anybody sued him. I don't think anybody ran him out of town. So I think they did talk to the players. I also think they did not consult the players on who to go after, on asking for recommendations and being that direct with them. I think the feedback was more about the player, asking the players what needs to change, how do you think we can improve, those kinds of things. And I don't think they consulted the players on the search. So I just wanted to make that comment out of the gates. I've got thoughts on the people stepping in, on the coaching staff and really how that goes. But I just wanted to get that out there off the top because I think for a lot of our Termite listeners that are, you know, following along the National and following a lot of the different talking heads, you know, just because, you know, again, Chicklets, right? One of the leading, probably the leading voice for the common man following the NHL. You know, you could look at that and say, oh my God, what a shit show. They're not on the same page. And I just want to say, let's be grateful that in our sport we've got hockey people running things and not, you know, Yale nerds.
That's fair. You know, I think you're seeing former players step into these roles. You're seeing hockey minds. It's different.
Sorry, Ivy League nerds. No, I don't want to beat up on you.
It's different. Baseball is very analytical, and that's where you're seeing, potentially these more book smart personalities in terms of these positions versus hockey, where it's
And let's be grateful and let's cling to this, because it would, I bet 10, 15 years from now it'll get nerdier in NHL front offices, and I really don't want that to happen. But I just want to
younger. You're seeing things. Yeah, things are changing. There's no arguing that.
But hockey, I think, will always be a little bit less academic based on the nature of the sport.
Remember Chaika, the GM, the old GM? He was kind of like the analytics come-up
Arizona?
guy.
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah.
And he flopped out completely.
Exactly.
So I think that was a setback for the analytics in hockey.
Yep. And I just want to make that disclaimer, because I would like us to discuss this, because I do think it is relevant and there's a lot to hit on. So you guys jump in.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's McDavid's former junior coach. It's a guy who was with, I think, the Hartford Whalers of the AHL.
Would actually be the Hartford Wolfpack.
Hartford Wolfpack.
The Rangers minor league team, and the Rangers okayed him leaving.
Correct. And that's
they could have dug in their heels.
As I think it was either one of the podcasts that I listened to about it and kind of their breakdown. It was, the Rangers kind of seeing that Knobloch was a popular figure in terms of the head coaching searches this offseason. I think you kind of have to promote him if you don't bring him in. And, they obviously brought in
Peter Laviolette. Hold on.
Who looks good.
No, so far so good. Did one of you guys pick Oilers and Rangers in the final?
I did.
Wouldn't it be funny if that's how it shook out?
That would be pretty wild. But
Would be.
You're kind of seeing the Rangers not halt Knobloch's potential progress and on his coaching, and that's what would be interesting to see what happens with Edmonton and coming in. You got to think he has to have a strong year for that to last. But I think their plan is to roll out with Chris Knobloch for the future. But Alex, I'm intrigued and ready to hear what you got on this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people look at this and they're like, oh, this is like to keep McDavid happy. And it's like partly that, but I think it's more so this team is just awful and they're not playing well and they want to win games. And then McDavid came out and he was essentially like the locker room was not lost. He wasn't say, like he almost implied that a coaching change wasn't really required. He didn't like give full support, like, oh, he wasn't upset about it. I think he understood what happened there, but it didn't, like, I think he was, at least to the PR and to the public, he was not trying to make it seem like he wanted a coaching change or thought one was necessary, which could just be McDavid and, like, typical hockey guy, just, like, not trying to throw anyone under the bus, just, like, we have to play better. I think he's mature enough to know that, like, that's really, at the end of the day, what it has to come down to. But I think the last two games, they've looked a little bit better. Still have immense talent.
Yep, 4-1 versus Islanders.
And that was before the firing. They let him go to the Kraken.
That was his first one, yep.
He got the one win, but
he got to
fired on Sunday.
What I heard was that
on Monday.
The decision was made that they were going to fire him after the San Jose loss.
And they let him finish the road trip.
Not even that. It was they had to make sure that they could hire Knobloch. They had to make sure that they had.
Right.
So it wasn't public. It was internal. Mm-hmm. And they said after the Sharks loss, that's it. Just like we saw them kind of mouth reading walking off the ice.
We're no professional mouth readers. It sounded like
no, it was
done.
It was Woodcroft to Manson. That might be it. And it was Manson to Woodcroft. Yep.
Kind of a sad sight.
It's the business. It's the business. They get it. They know it.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at McDavid at this point right now. I think he's like at a 50-something point rate right now. He finally scored his third goal of the season. It's just kind of crazy stuff. Draisaitl, he scored in this one versus New York. They both added. I think Draisaitl for his sixth of the year. McDavid, like I said, for the third. They need to get these guys going, but I think they looked at it, and the reality is you've got an AHL fourth line, and you've got an OK 1 and 2, and a third line that's a fourth line in any other team.
Well, I'm kicking myself because I missed a major prop bet opportunity on hammering McDavid and Draisaitl and Oilers win in that game.
Yeah,
that was awfully predictable, especially against the Kraken, who are not.
No, he didn't
good.
score.
Awfully predictable, but.
Or I guess no, it was the Islander game. It was the Islander. Yeah, sorry. The first game against the Islanders.
We say awfully predictable. They're coming off a loss to the Sharks.
Which
like,
everyone, I mean,
The
I know
night
I
is
was
darkest
watching
just
it.
before the dawn,
I
right?
think you were
It's
with
true.
me watching it. I mean, we were full on the Sharks train, and it was exciting. It was actually.
Did you guys watch that Sharks
Oh
game?
yeah,
And it was,
I think
it
we
was
were all
kinda
we were all dialed
It's
into
kind of
it.
crazy how much offensive zone possession the Oilers had to
Yep.
do nothing with.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
you say do nothing with. So I made the juxtaposition to that game. I was tweeting about it, and I sort of caught Whitney's thing at the end of the game after it. But that game, especially that third period when they were down and really reeling to try to get back into it, and like that desperation hockey in the regular season, it was really unique. It was a unique regular season game because it felt like everybody in that Oilers sweater knew, like, we need to win this. Like, we cannot lose to these guys.
Yep.
And my tweet on it was, it felt like a Frozen 4 game between like a last-ranked Bemidji State against like a top-seeded Minnesota Gophers, where like the Gophers come in, right, undefeated season, super, super high, and they're going against a hot goalie and like a disciplined team, and like they're blocking up everything around the front, but like they're being dominated, but like they're clinging to that one goal lead. And they were the Oilers were completely dominant in that third period. And it just wouldn't go. Like, it just wouldn't go. And you had, like, Hyman on the doorstep. You had these setups that were inches away from going in. You guys mentioned that they were terrible and that they stunk. And I really don't think that the Oilers have been that bad. That there's, like, a breakdown. They had a lot of 40-shot games. Arm talks a lot about our shooting percentages. And, like, they're due for a correction there. And I think that there have definitely been some very clear and obvious, like, viral clips of especially Bouchard, and just some D zone breakdowns that have been just so obvious and ugly to pile on. But I also just want to say they've gotten terrible goaltending. They've had bad shooting percentages, right? So they've been losing heavily on goalie matchups. And the same way we were talking about how great Tocchet is and how great Vancouver is, well, Tocchet Demko versus Woodcroft in that goalie situation.
Yeah.
It's if find me a good coach, I'll find you a hot goalie, and it's sort of find me a coach that's going to get fired, I'll show you a disaster between the pipes.
And yes, and I think the talk had been that they were installing a new defensive system this year, and that's, I think, a little bit of a cause, maybe a cause that you'd like to think of Bouchard looking like he has no defensive sense in the defensive zone at all, but.
It was more that the guys weren't picking up on it, and Bieksa did a good kind of breakdown on one of the Hockey Night in Canada's there. But yeah, it wasn't taking. But my point is like that San Jose game, right? That was sort of like a summary of this whole first 11, 10 games.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. And they haven't been making every team look that bad because not every team's that bad. But they have been, they haven't been terrible. They just haven't been able to outscore their deficiencies, which is really the formula for them to be the team that we think they could be.
Well, and that, Nugent Hopkins hasn't gotten going, and that's a whole separate issue. Draisaitl,
Connor
McDavid.
McJesus
I know. And I'm going to pose a question to you, but Alex, I'm going to let you have any final thoughts before I pose a little prediction to the boys.
Yeah, my issue with this coach firing, not with the coach firing, but like the narrative that's been around it forever is like they're acting like a coach is going to come in and fix this, and yeah, it could get better. There could be some reversal of like unluckiness, and they could just play better. McDavid could be fully healthy. A lot of things. This team could still be a playoff team. Like they were dominant last year in the regular season. They're still a good team. But Ken Holland has done a fucking awful job trying to get players on this team. And he has some of the worst contracts in hockey sucked into that roster, including, we all know about Darnell Nurse. Jack Campbell's now in here. That's like $15 million down the drain.
14, yeah.
14 down the
14
drain.
and change,
Oh.
yeah.
But it seems like they continue to let him to make like the new coaching hires, to let him do all these things. And it doesn't seem like he's on the hot seat. Really.
It's collaborative, though.
This was Jeff Jackson's call. This seemingly seems like the changing. If you listen to.
But then fire Ken Holland if you're not going to let your GM.
His
firing a
contract.
GM
His
mid-season.
contract ends is over at the end of the season. I think the thought process after losing to the last two Cup finalists, their thought and hope was right off to the sunset with a potential Cup winner, Ken Holland. Which I'm going to get on the train of it was a poor offseason. They needed forward depth and they did absolutely nothing.
Well,
and,
did Holland sign the Nurse deal? I don't think he did.
I don't know what year.
I think
it
he
was.
signed Campbell.
He definitely signed Campbell.
I don't think he signed the Nurse.
But
I'm not sure.
You know,
I think
it's-
he might have.
I think you are seeing the changing of the guards in terms of Jeff Jackson taking over. That is McDavid's old GM or agent. You know, you're seeing it. They're trying to make McDavid happy, and you know, I think the reality is the big question I think comes this July with Leon being a free agent. You know, you got to think they got to keep Leon to keep McDavid happy. If you lose Leon,
I don't know about that.
If you lose Leon, what you know, yes, you lose. You're opening up 9, 10, 11, maybe 12 potential $1 million of cap room, but
Holland did sign the nurse deal.
I think it's a little scary if you let Draisaitl walk and you see that McDavid in 2 years
You can't let him walk.
So here's a big thing. Arm touched on it, and then you opened with it, Jack, right? Now they've got all these McDavid people in the organization, and
Correct.
It looks from the outside, right? It's don't let Gretzky leave Edmonton twice, right? That's the whole thing. But what I think is being lost is that what's being lost in that conversation is, you know, this isn't basketball. Like, I don't think McDavid is this prima donna who needs all these yes men around him. I really don't. I think that's the organization doing a very common tactic in just organizations that make up people that are corporate kind of politic environments, which I've got a little bit of experience around. It's a cover your ass thing where the front office is saying, like, externally, it's really more of an external thing than it is about internal, which is sad, but that's just the way that people respond to high pressure situations. And so they're bringing in these McDavid people as a sign to the outside world, we're doing everything we can to keep Connor. And I think all McDavid cares about is winning. And he knows his legacy is all about Stanley Cup, plural. And so while I think, you know, that's a good CYA tactic from a PR standpoint, right? We're just talking about hockey guys not really knowing PR, but like, I don't think it's necessarily an effective chemistry thing inside the building.
I don't think so either.
Before we wrap up on the Oilers coaching change,
Well, we need to talk about the personnel coming in and what we talked about last week about who might come in, because there's a big difference in who they brought in versus who we said they need.
They brought in Knobloch. They had Paul Coffey, who's been a special advisor to the owner. I think he's coming in as the defensive coach. But it sounds like more of a guy who's just kind of being in the room and observing, and probably more of an agent than potential coach. We'll see what happens there. I know you don't like that.
More of an agent?
I think more reporting back to the owner and seeing what is needed. You know, do they really need to reshape this total roster? Do they need to?
Yeah.
Who's at fault? And you know, I think you look at it. You're saying McDavid was on note saying the locker room wasn't lost. You know what? You know, yes, the obvious is the goaltending has been horrendous, but you know, as I said, I think the clock is starting to tick on the prime years of Draisaitl and McDavid, and they have nothing to show for it at this point.
Arm, if you have something, I'm ready to kind of jump right in here. Which
I have one final point on reason for optimism on this team.
Okay,
Go ahead.
before we get there, like the reason for the firing and the change, right? We talked break glass in case of emergency. It's emergency time. It just is, right? Draisaitl will have a contract year next year, right? So this summer is his. Can you extend him, or is he going to go into a contract year?
Correct. The Willie Nylander.
And then McDavid's the following summer.
Correct.
So they absolutely. I think that's the nature of the business. I think everybody understands that. But we talked last week about what kind of a guy they need to bring in. We talked about a Berube type. We talked about a Hardo. We talked about kind of a different kind of mentality, because Woodcroft's a very player guy. He's kind of younger. He connects with the guys, and he's, you know, not one of these hard asses. And what they do, they brought in, you know, another younger guy, McDavid's junior coach, and it seems like another Jay Woodcroft that they've brought in. So in that sense, and then they have Paul Coffey coming in to assist on the defense. I mean, Paul Coffey, right? One of the probably top 20
Correct.
players of all time, arguably. Not exactly a defensive stalwart, right? I mean, not a lot of defensemen.
That's why I say I think he's more of a guy reporting back to ownership. And
Well, I don't think anybody will ever top Paul Coffey's point production numbers, but like, yeah, he's not bringing in a hardcore system and like hammering out
Correct.
video with the boys. They've probably got under assistants that will be doing that stuff. But to me, like that identity change with the coaching, that seems a little. It seems a little less than, you know, the prescription doesn't necessarily match the illness in that sense, if you follow. But also, it goes back to my prior point, which is they're going to balance this out. If they keep putting 40 shots on net with these guys, their shooting percentage is going to go up, they're going to start putting up more goals, and they're going to outscore teams. And maybe, just maybe, Evan Bouchard, I mean, who better for Evan Bouchard to hang out with every day than Paul Coffey?
Yeah.
It's
So,
interesting.
Let me pose this question, and this will go to your optimism of where they can rebound. They sit at 9 points currently. I think they're 16 points out of a wild card or out of a division, catching Vegas. I think, is it safe to say that the Pacific title's out of their hopes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The ship sailed. And like for our listeners,
playoffs
right?
are not.
U.S. Thanksgiving, right? U.S. Thanksgiving.
correct. You said this off pod, and I'm glad you're bringing it up on pod.
A week from tomorrow is the unofficial cutoff date for playoff seeding. The history of hockey, basically, the playoff picture at U.S. Thanksgiving on Black Friday doesn't change, save for 2 or 3 teams across the entire league that aren't in it at Thanksgiving that end up making it at the end of the season. So, the Pacific's, it's gone. It's gone. They're not going to catch Vegas. LA looks really good, and so I think that their hopes are to battle there and see what they can do for maybe that 3rd spot, or it might even be better for them to get in as a wild card and play a Central team. So.
Well, and then before I toss it to you, Alex, I know we keep doing this, but there's the Anaheim's in front of them, Blues in front of them,
There's not a better team.
Kraken in front of them. The path is there. Even the Hawks are in front of them.
The Yotes.
You're sitting 8 points behind the Blues. I think the path is absolutely there. But as to what the urgency of this coaching change is, I think that's where they had to hit the panic button. And besides tearing down the whole roster, I think a coaching change was what was necessary to try and reset the panic button.
Very last thing on the break glass case, I still think that mix-it-up trade before January, I still think that's big, and I think it's Evander.
Freege had the he couldn't really speak to what the rumor was, but apparently Edmonton had something in the works that was big, but has fallen apart, or at least is quiet at this point.
If you want to trade, do it now or do it soon. I know teams don't like to trade this early.
It takes
but
2 to tango.
But I know, but there's 2 options here. One is that you're in the playoff hunt, which means you're playing well, and then are you going to break it up, or are you going to get a little cold feet on that because you're playing well?
No, I don't think there's snowball's chance in hell that they are sellers throughout the season.
I don't think they're going to be sellers, but if they're not in
what
the
they
playoff
have to sell
race,
besides McDavid and
they have a lot to sell.
they have a lot to sell.
They have a lot to sell.
Hyman,
But if
maybe.
you wait to the trade deadline to buy, you're either not good enough to trade for somebody, or you're playing well and you don't want to mix it up. It's one of the 2 things, I think. So I think an early move makes sense for them. One move that did happen, roster move for them. Sam Gagne's back. And Sam Gagne, I know he's not one of the best players. He's playing on the first line right now with McDavid and I think Hyman. The reason I bring him up is because he kind of made me – and I watched him play, and I was like, oh, he looks pretty good out there. I think one of the biggest, mis-evaluations of this roster for me, and I think a lot of people have this conception, is that this team needs more, grit and more grinders. The bottom 6 is kind of full of those guys.
Fogel.
It's kind of full of grinders. I don't think they have. I think they have 3 offensive players who can.
Holloway, 55. Holloway, college kid.
He's hurt though.
He just got hurt.
No,
Sorry.
but that's pretty much what it is. You're 2 good wingers on the roster. Both are not puck movers. Hyman and Evander Kane are really just grinders that are incredibly good at grinding. They're good finishers.
Can you understand why I say I think there are pieces on this team that are probably attractable, but
You just said there weren't.
I still don't think there's anything besides maybe Hyman, Kane that you really
Those
would
are
look
big
for
pieces. But what I'm saying is, and this is why I point to Hyman, because Nugent Hopkins can play on the wing and can move the puck, right? I think there's 3 forwards on this team who can actually move the puck and possess the puck and make a good pass. And Hyman and Kane have that in their abilities, but they're not puck movers. They don't help you possess the puck. They don't help you create opportunities. They finish them. They really have nobody up top who's creating opportunities for this team, other than the big 3. And one's not, and all 3 aren't playing well, really.
But those are 3 that can
That can turn it on.
I get it, but
correct.
How about instead of putting McDavid with Hyman and Yamamoto or whoever they decide to throw up there, give him a guy who can make a pass and maybe create something for himself, as opposed to McDavid having to skate circles till somebody's back post.
I think you want the puck on McDavid's stick.
I get it, but
Correct.
put some more fucking skill on this roster as opposed to just getting big boys who can finish. Because on paper, right? Oh, it's just like an alley-oop. McDavid's going to find you every time. I would like to see a puck mover on this team. Trade Evander Kane or Hyman. I get that they bring value, but trade one of them for a different type of winger.
It's a thought.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't necessarily. I don't agree that they need more skill. I don't. I think the skill there is going to work out, and I'm going to throw your little shooting percentage stat back at you. I think that will find. Its level. But hey, Army, that's a take. That's a take, right? Swap out one of these shooters for a puck mover.
And even the defensemen aren't puck movers.
Well, Ekholm's pretty solid, and Bouchard is good.
But they don't have one of those little breakout wizards, who can make like a two lane pass. They're good defensemen. They're more
Ekholm can do that. Bouchard can do that.
They can, but they're not these great puck movers. I don't agree with that.
The road for recovery for the Edmonton.
Maybe Mac Grizzlick.
Oh, maybe.
Honestly, I would test that out. And like the defense can't get that much worse, so why not? Like I don't even hate that idea.
The road for recovery for the Edmonton Oilers, it continues. I think they've got a 6:30 start with the Kraken tonight.
Who they're just beating the bag out of
We'll see who.
It's the only team
they're
going to
win.
Yeah,
They're probably gonna win.
We'll see what happens with the Oilers if they try to recover as we hit basically the Thanksgiving mark. But Edmonton makes the coaching change early in the season. Moving on to Sweden. The Global Series. The NHL tries their little, Frankfurt, Germany games, their little England go overseas. Interesting market to pick in terms of Sweden. It's the third best pretty much nation in the world in terms of the world hockey rankings. You know what you're going to get with Sweden. I think there's one of the most major world hockey leagues being the SHL and in Sweden already. But 4 teams sent to Sweden this week. Toronto, Ottawa, Detroit, and the Minnesota Wild, the lone wolf from the Western Conference. Kicks off tomorrow day, I should say. So for anyone of you at work and you got your phone out and you want to throw on a little day hockey at 2 o'clock, you've got Central Time, 3 o'clock Eastern.
Probably the toughest sport to multitask to, but still, you got some afternoon hockey on weekdays. It's sort of like not exactly Masters Week for those. That
2 p.m. Thursday, you got Wings Senators. Friday, you got Leafs Wings at 2. Saturday at 11, Wild Senators. And keeping the Leafs in Sweden for an 8 a.m. Sunday morning matchup with the Leafs Wild at 8 a.m. to kick it off to finish it on Sunday in Sweden. The NHL goes global. Obviously, the Red Wings are involved, so Alex has got a little bit on that. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Sweden, they're in Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great move for the NHL. Why not go like
let's send it over to our international hockey correspondent, Alex the Arm Dog Armour.
I am. And these games will be taking place, by the way, at Avicii Arena. Pretty sweet barn. Take a look at it on Google Maps.
Levels changed everything.
Levels did change everything, and I hope they're bumping some Avicii at these games. Why not?
They absolutely will be.
Yeah. But I think they did a great job with the teams. I wouldn't... I think the Red Wings and Senators have clear Swedish ties here. I mean, 2 of the best Swedes ever played for the Sens. The Wings, obviously, pretty much Sweden's NHL team.
I think you got to hammer DeBrincat to score one on this one, too.
I mean, that's every game. But I don't know why Sweden would change that. But
because he's playing the Sens.
Because he's playing the Sens.
Oh, revenge game.
Come on.
Revenge
game. Oh, yeah.
He already had his...
Christ. Don't laugh at me like I'm a freaking idiot.
I mean, we already revenged them. He avenged his...
That's right.
Trade that he wanted.
That's right.
I don't know why he's got so much beef. He just wanted to leave.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think they did a great job picking these teams. I think they're all fun, exciting players. I think the environment's going to be great. I'm excited to see what it looks like on TV because I wonder what SHL doesn't have the best video that I see.
You mean broadcasting angles?
Broadcasting I don't love, so I'm interested to see it. It'll be cool to get a new angle. There's always some good clips about these European players or the North American teams going over to Europe. There's always some good social media stuff. So it should be fun. I'm pretty excited about this. Again, I think they picked the right teams. I think they have a good group there, and I'm just excited about it. And it makes me think about so many other places I'd love to see games. Obviously, Russia would be tough right now, but I think a game in Russia would be sweet. Ovechkin and the Caps.
I don't think that's going to happen under the current regime.
I hear you, but you understand what I'm saying. There's so much opportunity for these types of things, and I love that the NHL's doing it. I think it'll be fun.
So play a little devil's advocate, right? Objectively, right? Bruins aren't going over there. I get to watch hockey in the middle of the day, probably depending on schedules and other conflicts, etc. But I love it as a consumer, as a North American consumer. I think it's cool. To Jack's point, as far as growing the game, they've done things like this. They did the preseason stuff in Australia. They've done preseason trips to like China
Finland.
and to Czech Republic and a lot of international markets. And I think that's definitely cool. I think that makes a lot of sense. For this one, Jack made the point off the top, right? You don't really need to sell hockey in Sweden. That's kind of a fact. I think some other countries that would have been good choices could have been Latvia. They love their hockey. They're a little underrepresented.
You're seeing
growing.
Zembis Gergensen, all-star.
Germany, right, is really growing as like the mid-major in international play. Maybe Austria, something around there. Just because.
Switzerland.
Yeah, sure. The whole kind of Lux, right, Benelux region. But. So I get that point about you don't need to sell hockey in Sweden. I get that. And then for the teams in this market, you've got a loud market in Toronto, right, that's complaining about the disruption to the regular season, this crazy travel. And I mean, it's a pretty significant bounce. It's not like the NFL where you play one game a week. This is in the middle of their whole schedule and disruptive in a lot of sense to the normal ongoings of things, which is why I think they're going to be kind of tough games to bet. I'm probably going to stay away from betting them. But my only point on that is there's definitely money in it for the league. That's business stuff that we don't fully grasp, and I don't think is totally above board. Excuse me. Thank you, Prousek. And the other point is that I mentioned like the Benelux region, right? I think those would be the places that I would want to target to try to grow the game. I listened to some interesting off-season podcasts with some of the guys. I think Bill Daly, who's like one of the big wigs in the NHL, in the league office, about what they look for in a market in order to do this kind of stuff. And there are like certain requirements the league looks for that are largely based on sort of like financial compensation, commitment to promoting the game, not having the game happen without it being accompanied by like youth hockey development things and seeing investment in that country to grow hockey. That's something they look for. With Sweden, it's like that infrastructure is already there, and I don't know how much they're gaining. But I do think it's a cool thing as an objective observer. But I think that there are valid. I don't want to say criticisms, but valid objections to putting this in the middle of the regular season for those four clubs to disrupt their season.
They gave them a lot of time.
They did.
Like the Wings haven't played in 4 days, I think.
They've been out there for the last 2 or 3.
I think that's like a Crimea River type thing. It's not going to kill your season.
And you see next week, I think they're off Wednesday and Thursday or Tuesday and Thursday or something next week.
They built it in fine.
So they have found their way.
All right.
But we're talking about Gary Bettman. We know Gary Bettman's not going to do anything unless money's involved. And, I think – again,
he does run a business.
He works for the owners.
So correct,
and that money goes back to the players too. Like the players benefit from
doing things for money should be good. That means the game is growing.
That's true. That's true.
I think that gets hated on a little bit too much.
And it's interesting. Look at Thursday, and you would have thought the Wings would be the favorite, but minus 120 in favor of the Sens. It's a close line. Obviously, the Rings are plus 100, so it's kind of a crapshoot in that one. But I think it'll be fun to see these 4 teams go to battle. Lucky enough for you, Arm, the Wings are back by Saturday? Aren't they back in? I think they play the first 2 Thursday, Friday, and then they're done.
Yes.
So that's easy pickings for that. It sounds like if the Bruins were involved in this, you'd have a little bit more criticism that you'd probably have involved, but understandable. It's a tough travel. You see what the NFL is trying to push with overseas, and it's just not a schedule where a team over there would.
It's a little bit of apples and oranges, saying American football in London or in Germany versus NHL hockey in Stockholm.
No, and as I think I was listening to Kipper and Bourne.
Right. Those are apples and oranges things.
When you're playing, you could play 3. Go back to the States for 3 weeks, come back, play 6 games at home, go back 3 weeks, blah blah blah. So it's more manageable in football to do it, obviously, than hockey. So I don't think the league growing overseas is something that's in the plans, but. The Global Series definitely a fun thing to throw into the NHL's mix.
It's just fun.
Here in November.
I don't know why there's so much hate on this. The teams you're not going to get screwed over by 2 fucking games where the other team has to travel too, and then you come back and get 4 days of rest. You're going to be able to recover fine. Trust me.
And good team bonding stuff always, right? Always.
This is just a fun thing, and I get it. Mm-hmm. You might want to go see it in a new country. Sweden is like a hotbed of hockey. Why not give them a couple games? It's
the best league in the world. It's
a slam dunk, and we complain about the NHL not doing enough of this all the time. So when it happens, just say yes and be happy about it.
And I'm ready to move on from the topic, but it would almost be like the NFL playing an NFL game in like Athens, Georgia.
It would be sweet.
Or in Tuscaloosa.
That would be cool.
Or,
Correct.
like in Gainesville.
Football, Bet of America. Texas.
Or in
middle of
Iowa
Texas.
City.
Which, by the way, I would love all that.
Yeah.
So, like you say that, I don't know what your intention was there, but I think that would be cool.
No,
Roger.
I do.
Roger, Gary, you need boys for their marketing. You got two guys right next to me that are thinking big for you. That closes us up on the global series. We're moving to the March of the Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins. They've been hot of late. I think they're winners of their last 5 in a row.
The March
defeating
of the Penguins.
Defeating the Blue Jackets last night. You saw vintage 35, 36-year-old Sidney Crosby continue and light the lamp for 3 times after just another. This guy is so good. I mean, obviously he's been the best player in the world for so long, but his ability in front of the net, his ability to just put a stick on the puck and just deflect it is wild, and that's what you kind of saw in his first goal of the game. And then you look at 37-year-old Evgeny Malkin, who's on pace for like 101 points. It's just
I don't think Malkin's 37.
He is 37, believe it or not. No, I'll prove it to you. I'll look it up in a second. Otherwise, you can search it up. You've got a phone. But the Pittsburgh Penguins, it was a slow start to the season. It was one of those kind of, are we worried about them after the first 2 weeks? I think we talked a little bit about the Penguins' sluggish start, but they've reinserted themselves in their division and found themselves at 8-6-0 for 16 points and right in that hunt for a wild card spot in the Eastern. The boys, the Pittsburgh Penguins. What do we got?
This seems good. The top 2 lines, I think, match up with most top 2 lines in hockey. Right now, it's Crosby, Gensel, and
Rust.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Who's playing with Malkin?
Malkin's playing with Riley Smith
And Raquel. That's
and
right.
Raquel.
You're right. Yeah. So I was doing some research on these 2 lines because I was watching the game and I was like, they look good. Crosby, Gensel, and Rust are one of the best lines offensively, like in the game right now. They're just dominant. Apparently, yeah, I know. Rust is a great player. I think Rust is just like the perfect like kind of combo forward. Does it all. And then Malkin, Riley Smith, and Raquel are a shutdown line right now. They don't. That's what the numbers say. They just don't give up shots. They don't give up good chances. Crosby and Malkin look great. I mean, they look healthy and they look big, physical. They're doing their game. They don't seem to have like slowed down that much. Malkin doesn't have the same burst he once had, but he looks fantastic. He's still a beast.
God, he had this cross ice feed to Carlson on one of the goals last night. Oh my God,
It's incredible.
It was like you could see Carlson kind of winding up for a while, and they were trying to get it there, and then Malkin has it, and he just he's in traffic and just finds that lane and just rips one. It was just a 1-T on a knuckler that Carlson put
And
away.
the power play's moving now. Riley Smith's been bumped up to it, and I think he's like kind of a great net front, like enough skill, enough kind of grittiness there to like put home some of those. But I mean, this power play got off to a slow start. It's going to be great. Mm-hmm. I mean, like Erik Karlsson is a big upgrade over Letang, and that's no hate on Letang. We're talking about Erik Karlsson here, though. Like one of like, the preliminary. Like
I'm glad you bring up Karlsson because you're finally starting to see him click. Where in those first 2 weeks, yes, it's a new place, it's a new system to kind of grow into, but Karlsson finally looks like he's integrating well into this Pittsburgh organization.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like the power play started off slow,
and they're at 17.9.
Take the point right out of my mouth. The punchline, yeah.
18. They're about 18% at this point right now. I think this is a team that should sit mid-20s, and I think that's
It's going to be one of the best power plays. There's too much talent.
You look at it, and their penalty kill, I think 84, 85% basically at this point, and things are starting to click for the Pens.
This third line looks kind of fun too with Lars Eller and this O'Connor guy. Is that his name?
Yeah.
They kind of buzz. I was watching this game last night.
I'm glad you brought that up. O'Connor, the college kid.
They look pretty good. Lars Eller's been
Drew O'Connor. Yep.
25.
Yeah, but Lars Eller's been like a third-line warrior his whole career, and he still looks great. Like he doesn't seem to have slowed down.
I give a ton of credit on the pod to Tyson Nash, the play-by-play or the color guy on Arizona Coyotes. Our boy, the other arm dog, Colby Armstrong, is doing color for Pittsburgh broadcast. Who's
really?
Another one of my favorite talking heads. He's my second favorite arm dog talking head, I must say.
Okay,
But Colby Armstrong on the broadcast, he was talking about how it's this guy Zahorda and O'Connor.
Zahorda. Yeah,
Zahorda and O'Connor.
too.
Zahorda got his shit rocked the other night. But anyway, Colby Armstrong was making the point that those guys love playing with Eller, and that he's just brought some really good stability to allowing other guys to play their game because he's such a steady Eddie down the middle, and he's in the right positioning, and he's always ready for a pass, and being just an easy guy to play with, which I think is a very underrated characteristic. And you brought up Riley Smith earlier too, right? Another easy guy to play with. Remember, we were talking on the pod about kind of comparing Duren and Evan Rodriguez, right? Again, this is
Riley
unrelated
Smith,
to these
vibe.
Exactly. And I think that I think those are great observations, and I was really impressed with the depth I saw out of Pittsburgh in that Columbus game that I tuned in for. I caught most of the third period as the Bruins game turned into a blowout, and I mean the depth was impressive. Crosby in the third period made like 3 just like all planet backhands.
Yep.
And like they were all passes, and he fed Rust on a breakaway on a backhander through the neutral zone. That like anyone else does that, and you're like, "What are you doing, dude?" Crosby does it. It's like tape to tape right through the D, leading him in. Epic. He floated one like it was like a botched breakout, and it looked like that classic kind of punt play. But no, it was intentional for Crosby. It was just like an airmail diagonally across the ice over the D man, lands right for whoever the pushing winger was. Might have been Rust again. That like had him not an odd man rush, but like gives him momentum entering the zone and zone possession, which is just ridiculous. And he had just another few. And you mentioned the side of the net sort of now signature Crosby tip in, which I say Kreider's the only other guy in the league that's like on the level with that play. And
there's a few guys, but yeah, it's not many.
Colby Armstrong had a line. He calls it the side of the net, the chop tip.
That's a good line.
The chop tip.
That's pretty much what it is.
And it's just it's like if he's able to get that, unless the goalie's able to like jump on his stick, right, and just get that deflection to hit him, it's going like near side, top down, like elbow macaroni, and it's just it's almost indefensible, especially when Crosby's like lingering in the corner or behind the net, and then he just pops right there under the circle and gets that play, like and. Especially with distributors like either Letang or Carlson.
Well, this is the thing. Like Carlson is probably one of the few guys in the league who processes the game as fast as Crosby.
You nailed it.
I don't think Crosby's, and this is like I'm talking about like Malkin and Letang as like elite Hall of Famers. I don't think they process at the same speed Carlson does.
I mean,
Carlson's like one of a kind.
Yeah,
like it's just unbelievable that those two can share the same ice, and they're probably very much on the same page, and it's going to be open more. And it's going to come at the right time every time. Right. It's unbelievable.
And on that Crosby chop tip, right? Carlson goes in, he fakes the slap shot, right? Like brings all the attention out of the corners into his shooting lane, and then he's got this little side shot to the far corner, and it was pretty gross. It was pretty gross.
And I've also been impressed with Pettersson and Ryan Graves. I liked Ryan Graves last year, and I think New Jersey just kind of had to move on. For roster construction reasons.
Yeah.
But I think those are both good, steady additions. Pettersson was there last year, but Graves I think is a great addition.
Oh,
and Pettersson was getting he was getting a lot of credit on the Pens broadcast.
He's a guy who's playing 21 minutes for this team. He's leading in plus minus as much as I love my plus minus, and I think that's where you're starting to see the reliability and steadiness of depth on this Pens team.
Yeah.
One more thing on the Pens, Tristan Jarry. Leading the National League in shutouts, Arm. What do you got for that?
Yeah, I still don't think he's good. I know he has good nights. Honestly, I'd be more interested to see. We talk about a lot of teams wanting a goalie. I would love to, and I don't know what they think of Jarry. I don't. But the shutouts is good for him, And like honestly, he's played better than I expected this year. I think they would be interesting with a top tier goalie.
I just. Okay. So I get that point, but as we've seen, we're going to get to the Ducks, right? I don't think Gibson's going to be on the move. Hellebuck doesn't. He got that extension. I don't know if he's moving. He definitely can't fit. Jake Allen. I think Edmonton's going to be charging for Jake Allen.
The big one.
But with Tristan Jarry, like I think about moving on from him. You ask what they think. I mean, I would guess they think. Going back to a little Star Wars reference, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope. Like I think Tristan Jarry's their only hope. The way that they're all in with the older roster and like the last kick at the can, like I don't think they have a lot of flexibility other than Jarry being great. And unless he's a disaster, I don't see them moving from him.
I don't think they're gonna move from him, but bring in like a good, competent backup. Like Magnus Hellberg's there right now. He was let go by the Wings because the Wings didn't want him.
They got two guys,
and the Wings don't have.
And
the Wings chose James Reimer over him.
No, I hear you. I hear you. Jarry's 6-5 on the season. The other guys have really only stepped into 5 games so far. Jari's going to carry the way for Pittsburgh, I think. And I agree with you, Ross, on that. He's kind of the only hope at this point.
And,
So.
and I know we're moving on from the Pens shortly, but just a few game notes on watching Columbus a little bit in this. One of my first looks at Columbus this year.
You want to save it for loose change?
No. I want to just get it in while we're talking about the Pens because it was all part of this Pens game. This Marchenko, I haven't watched a lot of Marchenko. He's kind of again. This all goes back to our comparisons of the players at the different levels. I'm not saying this is apples to apples. I'm saying it's he's in the same genre, but he's got a little bit of a kind of posture knock to his game where he's a little loosey goosey, but he gets that puck and it's dangerous.
Felt like a magnet was attached to his stick.
His goal was great. It showed why he had 14 without an assist.
Have you seen the NHL angle of it?
Yeah, that was sick.
There's a sick angle from
that was
above
ridiculous.
It's a very cool angle.
Cool.
Yeah.
Skycam is.
I just love that he tried to pass it and they said no.
And then
take it back.
Boone Jenner was pretty elite in the dot. He snapped him back in a couple draws, even beat Crosby on a few. And there's this little guy on Columbus that's on the Termite watch list named Danforth. 17 he wears. He was he was buzzing around out there and working his tail off. And Columbus kind of has that track record of the smaller guys going back to Nathan Gerby, and obviously they had the Gaudreau, different type of player. But this little Danforth, I liked what I saw out of the little Danforth guy. So he's definitely on the radar. And Columbus is not very good, but we're not going to watch a ton of their games.
I do have a question about Columbus. Corrali is a fucking cannonball when he gets moving with the puck.
Oh, dude, I've loved Corrali.
You like him?
Well, he came up with the Bruins, right?
I know, that's why I asked.
Yeah, so he played at Miami, Ohio. He's a total college hockey player, right? Not highly skilled, but really fast. Good size and length. He's not huge, but he's like 6'2".
Big and fat, yeah.
Yeah, and he's a great skater, really good defensively, good penalty killer. He's everything you want in a fourth line center.
Okay, so that was what, because I saw a couple plays. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's moving. And he won't score 10 goals a year, but he has a knack for scoring big goals. He scored some big ones for the Bruins back in the day. Yeah. And he's from Ohio, right? Played in Miami, Ohio. He's from the area, so that's another thing that they care about in Columbus that a lot of other markets don't.
Quick notes for Columbus on my end. Jack Roslovic hits the IR with a broken ankle. Unfortunate loss for them. Finally getting a hopeful, healthy Patrick Laine back in the lineup, as he's only played 7 games. I think he stepped back in the lineup about 3 days ago.
He did not look good.
He looked horrible.
Yeah, he did.
So he didn't play. He didn't play versus versus Pittsburgh last night. So the Laine situation has not been. No, he didn't. Oh yeah.
He did play.
Yes, he did.
And he looked bad.
Apologies.
He looked very bad. Yeah. And they put Gaudreau and him together to try to get him moving. No,
Gaudreau was fighting it from what I saw.
They both just look like shells of themselves.
He's coming off. He missed 20 days, 25 days.
I get it. I'm just saying they don't look like they're going to be playing well on that team.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look. It doesn't look like they are doing it.
It's not working.
Another transition year in Columbus for sure.
Well, and I think you're looking at your hopeful future. I think they're confident that Fantilli will be the future leader of this team, and the Ducks will be in his basket. But that segues us to a little program correction. Because we didn't necessarily not talk about these two teams, but we maybe skimmed over them a little bit. But we're going to start out on the West Coast, and that's going to be with Rusty's favorite Anaheim Ducks. It has been an interesting start. Radko Gudas, a lover, not a
podcast favorite, a slot shot favorite.
Yes, thank you. A guy who Gordie Howe hat trick for the first time in this team's history since Shane O'Brien did it about 10 or something years ago.
07.
It's been a long time since they've had a Gordie Howe hat trick, and Radko was able to deliver for the Anaheim Ducks, who are sitting actually in a wild card spot, and that's why we start with the Ducks as a team that has kind of shocked a little bit of us. And yes, we talked about the inability and we think the doubtful success that Trevor Zegras and a potential Troy Terry brings to this lineup, but then you look at Mason McTavish. They have cautiously, slowly walked in Leo Carlson, who has been phenomenal, and much more with this Ducks team. So, boys, the Anaheim Ducks, it's time to give them their moment. What do we got?
I mean, this team is competitive, and that's kind of what the program correction is here. Mm-hmm. We didn't think they had that much with them. Leo Carlson was tough to judge in terms of what his first-year role was going to be, I think particularly because he's Swedish. And a lot of people are like, oh, is he are they going to try to adjust him to the North American game, which is this common thing that does happen, But he's come out and played. They've limited how many games he's played a little bit, and they plan on doing that for most of the first half of the year. But when you see him play and when he's moving, he is unbelievable. And you can see how much potential this guy has. I mean, he's huge. He possesses the puck well. He's got a shot on him, which I wasn't fully aware of how what his scoring potential was. I think that's a tough thing to fully judge, at least for me. From a lot of things are tough to judge draft scouting, but he looks like he's up to the pace. He looks like he can slow the game down already, and part of that's because he's big. He can just kind of shield the puck a little bit. But he's looked great. I think the wingers on the top lines have played well. They've done it. Mason McTavish looks like a guy who's going to be you really want him as your second line center.
Probably the next captain of the Ducks.
I think he should be.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's going to be an elite number 2 center. That could be a number 1 on a lot of teams, but as a number 2, he's unbelievable. So I've been impressed with that. We talked a little bit, I think, on the pod about this Mintnyukov kid, who I did not know much about, but he is spectacular.
So, Army, in our preview, we what is it? We saw the forest but missed the trees, or whatever that line is. We whistled past the graveyard because we talked about their prospect depth on D, and we were talking about Jamie Drysdale. We were talking about this Zellweger. Yeah. I'm still really high on Zellweger. I loved what I saw from him in junior. But in comes this Pavel Mintnyukov. 10 points in 15 games, running PP1, playing tons of minutes, looking like he belongs. The games that I've watched, which are a couple Bruins games and a little bit here and there across them, he's eating big minutes. He's possessing the puck. He's I've been so impressed. He looks so you could tell me he's a 6-year veteran, and I'd believe it. He doesn't look like a rookie at all. I'm really high on this kid, and it's hardly a LaVisca at this point because he's already been so great.
Fantastic,
but we didn't even realize he was going to be a big time piece of this team. He's been their best player this season, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no, we breezed over it. Well, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, for a guy who was a first round, 10th overall pick, we really did breeze. He kind of fell off our radar a little bit.
But it's part of it's we can't follow every team, and he wasn't
Correct.
on projected lines.
And it's hard. This team's on the West Coast. Most of their games at 9, 10.
We haven't watched much Anaheim, and we're also not in the Anaheim. I don't know what their media circus looks like, but we're not in it.
Not yet.
So it's been good, and Ross. I think you may like this. They've done it with Zegras being awful. Now he's hurt, but he had 2 points in 12 games.
Hey, we want guys to be healthy. We want guys to be healthy.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the one leading this charge. They have a lot of pieces, though.
Right.
Yeah.
You're seeing a ton of pieces on this team.
Frank
Gibson's
Vetrano,
playing
16 points.
Well, I wanted
goals.
to give a shout out to Frankie Vetrano, Frankie V, Western Mass Springfield boy, former Boston Junior Bruin. And just a beauty. He shoots everything. That's his career. He came up with the Bruins, and he just finds a puck, gets a puck, shoots a puck. And you know what? You need guys like that. And he's just got a finishing touch. He's had it since he was a 15-year-old. And he just gets the puck. He finds the back of the net. He's made a hell of a career out of it. And right now he's thriving. 11 goals in 15 games. Are you kidding me?
I think it's a great thing for young centers to have shooters. They don't have to be the best shooters, but there really is a lack of guys who like shooting the puck in the league. It's a thing that I don't fully understand because you'd think it's a decision, but I think part of it's a skill, get your shot off, and part of it's a mentality. And having those guys around your young playmakers is fantastic. I think it's a mentality, but also it's very easy to pass the guy who's going to rip one.
Little bit of
that pass.
Little bit of a throwback. There's a player on the Bruins Stanley Cup team, Michael Ryder. Who was he was one of Claude Julien's favorite players because he had him in Montreal and then he had him again in Boston, and he doesn't do a hell of a lot, but he gets the puck and he puts it bar down and scores. And it's as a fan it can be frustrating, but at the same time cheap goals, right? Vetrano, Ryder, it's kind of that kind of a player.
Well, 4 power play goals. I mean, he's clearly the target of the power play. He's led the team in shots like we've talked about. I think there's a little bit more to the Frankie Vetrano trade than the Michael Ryder, but I
think Vetrano generally he's a little bit more of a grinder. He's got a little bit more edge to his game. He plays with I think a better attitude than the Noof Ryder did. I want to definitely give Vetrano his flowers. But
they have
it's
good players too. I like the Radko edition. Off season, this is definitely something I was like, why?
Yeah, why are you going to Anaheim too?
Well, he did it
money,
for the money.
money.
But
Yeah,
for Anaheim, this is what I like about a team, going out and finding some guys who can fill holes because it's hard to play well and hard to develop when you're playing with bums. I think this is an underrated There are good bridge signings,
Oh,
Radko's looking great.
And
Ross,
they're getting good goaltending.
you bring up the goaltending, and it's yes, it hasn't been bad. And Gibson's only averaging 2.9 goals against.
2.19. Big
but
difference.
This Lucas Dostal, something like that. 7 games, 5-2. Maybe the potential future. Maybe if you get him a little bit more games, and maybe you talk about potentially adding to the roster and seeing what John Gibson could attract.
He's got a 91% save percentage. That's
I'm not saying
By
he's
the
been
way-
bad. I'm not saying he's been bad, but I think you got to look at, and I don't know much about this Lucas Dostal.
But also
23. Yeah, he's young. Yeah, could be
preseason,
the
I would
future.
say if a goalie on the Ducks, including John Gibson, had a 9-10 save percentage, that would be a good defensive year for the Ducks. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that both of them are above that is like that says something about the defense and the goaltending. It's hard to do that.
And another credit to just a veteran who's been through a lot in Anaheim, Cam Fowler. Right,
Cam
so
Fowler.
Playing well.
He came onto the Ducks when he came up as a hot prospect and a high draft pick. He came onto the good Ducks, right?
Yeah,
Back when the
totally, I
Pacific
remember.
was a total gauntlet.
I'll give
And he's-
Fowler, Henrique. These are two guys that have hung out for a while.
But with Fowler specifically,
He's
right,
been there forever. Yes.
he came in when they were a really good team. And then as soon as he kind of hit his stride, the team went off a cliff. So it's good to see him, who's been really consistent. And as a kind of veteran, solid D-man, he's helping hold down the fort, probably allowing Minyakov to be as effective as Minyakov's
Totally.
been. I don't think they're playing together.
I don't think so.
Because Minyakov, he's so puck dominant. Like,
Yeah.
But
You want 'em
and
separated.
Radko
exactly.
together?
You're better. Well, Radko's more the third pairing, I think.
No, Radko's playing some minutes, dude.
Yeah, good.
But no, I like that call because Cam Fowler, I actually followed his career pretty closely because he was linked to the Wings for like 10 whole years.
He was linked to a lot of places, yeah.
I know, but like it was always like, are they going to trade him? And there was this high point at Cam Fowler, like a couple years after he came up, of like, oh, he's an elite defenseman. The Ducks want everything for him. And then I think his reputation kind of plummeted with the team, which makes sense. It doesn't have as much to do with the player. It's good to see him have his resurgence, and get to play competitive hockey. This team's fun, I'm excited. Like I can call them a competitive team now.
900 games played for Fowler at just age 31, right? So
He's had a great career.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Fowler and Lacombe, Labushkin and Minyakov and Vaikanenian. I can't say
Urho
that.
Vakanainen.
Thank you.
Well,
And
Bushkin
Gudis.
loves to eat a shot.
So,
Blocks a lot of shots.
Anaheim, we apologize. It's a program
final
connection.
note, McTavish face-off beast.
What's he
Plus
sitting
40 on the season. Something like that.
at? Let me see.
Like
But
he's just very good at them.
yeah, I don't doubt it. But yeah, the Anaheim Ducks, they're first part of our little program correction. Our second part, and maybe not as substantial of an increase in terms of what we've been seeing, but Torts has got the boys in Philadelphia buzzing to a 500 record. Alex, I'm going to let you lead us off on the Philadelphia Flyers since you were so eager, and then I'm going to toss it over to you, Rusty.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a team that when we talked about them, we kind of just bashed them. And I think there was, like, fair reason to do so. Looking at the preseason roster, you're like, what are we doing here? Now, this was definitely a part of poor research on our part because we didn't really place that Couturier and Cam Atkinson were going to be out of this lineup, which we should have because that was a known thing.
It's been tough. It's been tough years for Couturier. There's no doubt
I know,
about
but
that.
he's back and he's playing well. Cam
Correct.
Atkinson is back and he's playing well. They have a new identity under Torts. They're playing. I think they're adapting that well and winning some games and being competitive helps. They have good goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Carter Hart got injured for a bit, but he's back and he's playing well. They kind of have a sneaky good, like kind of fun young decor. Yeah, like I was surprised by that, but Sanheim's racking up some points. The Sean Walker guy, he came from the Kings, right?
I want to say he's the Australian dude.
Who? Sean Walker?
Yeah.
He came from the Kings, though.
No, he's Ontario.
Okay.
He
Excuse
came
me.
from the Kings.
Scott
from
Walker.
mine.
Excuse me. Scott Walker.
Scott
St.
Walker,
Louis is
yeah,
the
yeah.
Australian. Sorry.
But he's good. Cam York, like they just kind of have a good like stable of like.
Cam York's playing 22 minutes for this team.
No, they have a good stable of like kind of puck moving defensemen.
Travis Sanheim's been good.
York was epic for the junior team in that.
Yeah.
in the
And
And I
World
think that's
Juniors.
where Philly was so high on Cam York coming in because I think he actually ended up playing some games that year after going back to college. But the future has been invested potentially in Cam York. I think after he
Did York play BC?
Michigan, I think. I want to say. But you've seen a little bit of Bobby Brink. I know Alex has been excited about what Bobby Brink's brought to the table.
Yeah.
Joel Farabee, Travis Konecny,
Travis Konechny, he's got to be one of their top scorers.
Oh, has to be, and he has been.
Right. But no, he's a prized asset for them. Mm-hmm. Cam Atkinson, right, longtime Torts guy going back to Columbus. He's looked really good for them. And Travis Sanheim,
it's good.
Really taking an extra step. He's at that point in a young D-man's career. I think there was a lot of kind of just questions about him, and I think basically they made the pivot to get rid of Provorov and build around Sanheim. And I think that there's been talk about Sanheim as a trade piece. I think Philadelphia is like, nah, like he's part of the core.
He's 27 at this point. So
is he now?
It's been a bit of a waiting process with Sanheim for the Phillies.
Sometimes defensemen are like that,
Yeah. You're finally seeing Middlestat take steps to the right correction, the right progression. So it takes a little time.
Buffalo?
Middlestat, the forward on Buffalo.
He's been better this year.
Yeah, what does that have to do with Travis Sanheim?
Just guys that are taking longer to develop.
Sure.
Is basically my point.
Yeah, but I just think they're
way too harsh on me.
This team looks good. And it's also like it's nice to see some of these young players
leading the Sabres in points. Fucking assholes.
It was just an irrelevant comp. Like,
tallest midget also in Buffalo right now.
It's just in terms of development. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah, but these young players, I think it's been good to see that. Like I think Couturier and Atkinson and Konechny, like they help a lot. And Konechny was obviously healthy all of last year, but having legitimate NHL players around your young players can make the team look a lot different. We talked about that with Radko and how this can make veterans can help young players develop, and it seems obvious, but a lot of teams I think avoid it, and they just like to let the kids play, which is, I think there's merit to that in some respects. But this team is competitive and borderline good, I would say. I think they're going to be in the playoff hunt. I don't think they'll make it, but they're going to be they're not like a step over team like they were last year. And I think if you're a Philly fan, there's a lot of pieces now where you can get excited and start saying in 2-3 years, if we have some more development, we bring in some guys, this could be exciting, especially when
could be exciting. I will agree with you.
But
I don't see a playoff hunt for this team.
But what will be interesting is that new front office, right? Jonesy and Briere. How do they manage? Yep. How do they manage being in the old NFL analogy, right? In the hunt graphic. If they're in the hunt graphic, and Torts is a win now guy. How does that triumvirate look at trade deadline?
I'll tell you how they look at it, because I think it's very clear what they're looking at right now.
Shoot, Arm.
They have a guy that only fell because he was going to take a while to go. Matvei Michkov is coming, and if we think about we talk about Columbus, we talk about all these other teams that had these top draft picks. Most people had Michkov as the second best player in this draft, and some people, not many, but some people were like he's almost Bedard level, right? We're talking about a player of that caliber potentially coming in 2 to 3 years. I don't see how you're not building for that, and I think the team's well positioned to do that. Get some development here so you're running when he steps on North American ice. That's where you look at this team in a couple of years and you're like, oh, they built for this moment and they're dangerous all of a sudden, because you're adding in a guy who's going to be 22 who was one of the top prospects who you would hope has developed a lot more. It's a pretty exciting future if you believe in Michkov and where this organization's going. I don't see how you're not excited. How this isn't like a team of the pretty close future.
And I think a lot of Flyer fans were ready to write off the season and just kind of check in around, deadline and prospects and draft season. And I think there's a lot of good reasons if you're a Flyers fan to tune in. So check them out. Check them out. They're on our radar.
Than years past. I'm going to be the negative Nancy and say I don't see this team staying in the hunt. I think a regression is due, but we'll see. We'll see. I like the optimism from the boys on the Philadelphia Flyers, and that was program correction. We apologize to those two teams that we may have breezed over in our previews.
Last point on Philly that's a counter is the Metro's down this year, right? The Rangers look good. Everyone else, not so much.
The whole East, I think, is a little bit down. There's good teams in the East, but you start talking about wild card, Ottawa's in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Buffalo's a joke. Buffalo's
done.
Buffalo's done.
There's a lot of teams that were supposed to.
I think Buffalo's. Yeah,
there's a lot of teams that were supposed to be there that don't seem to be there. So I think there's a lot of room to. The Islanders look like shit.
They look terrible.
There's a ton of.
Oh God.
Fire Lou chants are out.
Lou's looking like the final days of Belichick down there.
It's times, boys. It's time for Loose Change, our little around the horn of the National Week in Review. I know the boys watched a lot of hockey. I know there's a lot of things to talk about. Obviously, a little bit of, it sounds like Ross wants to go in towards the Buffalo direction. Boys, what do we got? Who wants to lead us off on Loose Change?
I'm ready to fire. I'll jump. Thursday night, Bruins Islanders. It was little bit of a battle of a game, especially considering how down the Islanders are right now. But just Pasternak, man, he just finishes, and it's what he does, and it's really valuable.
How many chugs are you at this year?
11.
Is that what he's at total?
Yeah, I either have 11 or maybe a -1. He might have 12.
Oh, he's at 11.
Yeah. Shattenkirk, God, he was terrible on a shorthanded goal they allowed. Shattenkirk's becoming a bit of a concern in Boston. Brad Marchand was buzzing around and screwing with Barzal on Thursday night. I like that. I've noticed he's been, again, that's kind of his MO, but he's been targeting every major guy when they play games, and that's his method of leadership, and it's become very clear. And I say major guys on the other team, like a Barzal, not like a Ryan Reeves. Little point on the Islanders, that Engvall, Brock, Nelson, and Palmieri line, greater than Anders Lee, Barzal, and Horvat. I talked about it last postseason, and that's the line that's driving them, and that's pretty much why they're a little bit of a joke right now. Charlie Coyle had his first career hat trick in that game. Charlie Coyle's a guy I think I talk a decent amount. He's a great hockey player. He's just not a point producer. And with obviously the departure of Krejci and Bergeron, right, he's had to step into a little bit of a bigger role. And I don't know if he's going to be a 55. He's never hit 60 points before in his career. I don't know if this is the year, but he had a hat trick, and there's a cute little finish there where Pasternak had the wide open net, and he was like, "Go to the net, and he fed him for the tap in, which that's just cute, and that's part of the Bruins loving each other, etc. But Mason Lohrei, he's been the number one thing for me to watch on the Bruins right now. Very frustrated to say that they're out to the exact same start they were last regular season. I know that's strange saying that I'm concerned about that, but you guys know my reasoning there. With Lohrei, I watched a little bit of him at Ohio State, and it's a different player in college than he's going to translate in the NHL, but he's getting his time in the NHL. He's playing with McAvoy right now. He's playing left shot with McAvoy right shot, and it's looking pretty good. He
looks good.
He's got some defensive zone things and some defensive play to adjust to, but no, I couldn't agree more.
He looks really good,
dude.
I think.
No. I couldn't agree more. Like that's part of why I'm trying to. Like, Grzelcyk is hurt right now, but when Grzelcyk's back, he's going to take that spot unless they move Grzelcyk.
And I think they should. Lohrei looks great.
I couldn't agree more. I'm concerned they're going to hoard all these players, and maybe send Lohrei to Providence, which would be devastating to me.
I think Mitchell's the one out.
Well, but my point with Lohrei is I've been kind of trying to figure out his game and like his player comp, and what I'm seeing out of him right now is a little bit of a like John Klingberg, early John Klingberg, not current, lashing boy in Toronto Klingberg. A lot of people forget Klingberg was at times considered like a Norris guy and like was one of the hottest prospects.
He was offered
he was unbelievable
$60
in
million
Anaheim
contract or something.
He was part of that Anaheim team that was
not Anaheim, Dallas.
Dallas.
Yeah, he played 1 year in Anaheim. It was a disaster.
Oh, yeah,
but Klingberg in his game, it's a strange comp. But what I saw in Klingberg was almost like a David Krejci-esque presence when the puck's on his stick, with just like patience and poise and slowing the game down. And Lohrei seems to have a natural thing for that, which is. It's really cool to watch. I thought he was going to be a little bit more of kind of a Brandon Carlo type. Big guy, skates well, plays D. He's a lot more offensive, puck on his stick, kind of dictating play, which is really it's really exciting.
Like, he can move incredibly well, especially for his size. I like what I see. Also, anytime you get the early comp to Klingberg or somebody of that ilk, you can always hope on defensive adjustments coming.
Yep.
Like being able to move that way and skate with the puck and make plays, that's what's you're excited about. Everything else can round out.
Cleaning up the loose change on that one, just Bo Horvat, invisible. I didn't see him once. I was very, very, he's a player I was so high on after he had just a dominant playoffs with Vancouver two springs ago, and he's just not.
He's just got to get hot.
He's fighting it. Yeah.
But when he gets hot, he scores a ton, and then he's not hot. But he's not a point a game player, which I think when he was traded for last year, people were expecting him to continue to be his hot start.
Mm-hmm. Big time. Shall I progress with loose change?
Yes.
To Avalanche Kraken. I caught this third period, right? So it's an incomplete.
Yep. And this is just quickly. This is a week where Jared Bednar said they suck. Just continue. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I get it. And my point on the Avs and Kraken, right? They obviously had that playoff last year. there's something about when these two teams get together. The guys are just flying around, and like it is like sneaky, really chippy, just a playoff atmosphere on the ice, which it could be rare, like we talk about in November. And it goes. They've got some bad blood, right? Remember Cogliano took a weird hit and like broke his neck, and so there were some responses, some fights in that game. Valerina Chushkin, who I'm continue to be really impressed with this year. I know the Avs aren't really going full steam, but I've loved what I've seen out of Chushkin. He had this, he had a football shift where he just shoves this guy. He finishes a check and just two-hand shoves a guy, drops him, and then flies to the front of the net. And one of the Kraken was like trying to get in position for a rebound, and Nichushkin's just like driving the front of the net to like be in a defensive position, and the puck comes out, and Nichushkin just smokes the guy without the puck getting there. 2 minutes for interference, but it's good to see the big man get going. And they call Nichushkin on the Avs broadcast, they call him Big Val, which I just love.
Big Val.
Big Val. I thought that was awesome. Oh my God, Prosvetov was the backup goalie for the Avs playing. Fine goaltender. Looks like he's good at stopping pucks. Not good at playing pucks. Stay in the crease, big fella. That was a big one. But the big dogs got going against the Kraken, and it was a tight game, and the Avs ended up being. I think they're down 2-1. I think they finished that game something like 4-2, scoring 3 in the third or so. And
this was their loss, 4-3
on Thursday night. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They played twice in the week.
No. But they were down 2-1. They went up 3-2, and the big boys were absolutely buzzing. And like it was like that tilted ice, that Edmonton San Jose game, right? They were just dominating. And Taves put one in after just a completely dominant shift from. They loaded up that first line with Rantanen, McKinnon, and Nichushkin, and it was just dominance. Right after that goal, Vince Dunn smashes Cogliano. Byron drops the gloves. Byron gets a double minor and a roughing minor for Dunn. So this is another thing we're starting to see, right? That whole emphasis on quote-unquote responses. And I think more often than not, the teams that quote-unquote respond are going on the PK. Just something to keep an eye on, and going to be a developing story all year. Makar was up to his old tricks. I thought he played some good penalty kill and defense. And another program correction. I talked about Jared McCann, and he scored 40 goals last year, but he's not a 40 goal guy. Newsflash, Rusty: if you score 40 goals in the NHL, you're a freaking 40 goal scorer. And like this guy is a big time shooter. He just is. Like
he really is, and he gets it off all the time.
I'm glad you said gets it off, because like the way that he plays the puck before he shoots and changes his angles and finds ways to just unleash that, it's pretty special. And I think I totally whistle past a graveyard on McCann.
I think so too. The other thing is the Kraken don't do one power play. They just haven't yet.
They don't really have it yet. They don't have big dogs.
They rotate the power plays. It's kind of just a mixed bag of players out there all game. Like they'll have 2 set power plays, but they split them up pretty evenly. So it's not like he's on one of these typical 40 goal scorer power plays where you get fed all the time. They don't always do that with him.
And then that's totally valid. And just so this game, right? So the Kraken got out to an early lead, and then it felt like the ice was totally tilted. Avs dominated. They go up, and then just like these two teams, it's like they've just got each other's number. It's like the Kraken kind of have Avs' number. Late in the game, Rusty Colton gets lost behind the net, and Bjorkstrand, a bounce off the pad. He's just the man on the money. Buries 32.8 seconds left. They tie it, go to overtime, and win in overtime. 3-on-3 overtime. I don't put a lot. Like the Avs don't need that point. I think they're going to be all right. So I don't go crazy about.
This was a regulation loss.
You got me there. Jesus.
I have a question.
Right.
Did you
No, I'm losing it. I lost track of the score, and my notes are a little discombobulated. So there you go. So the Avs end up dominating a game, and they come away with 0 points because they have that mental lapse late. And you got to think the Avs would have won in 3-on-3 with the skills they have.
Yeah.
So 2 points down the drain, and at least 1 point down the drain. That's a really tough regulation loss in a game they play. I thought that I didn't see this first half of the game. They probably sucked it up early, but they pushed late. and they got right back in it, and then they just choked it away late to the Kraken. It's something about the Kraken. Thank you, Jack, though. Important to keep that.
Oh, and
that's a big detail, especially when Bednar's on him about it.
And Colorado was able to revenge their loss on Saturday night versus that Kraken team. I think they beat them 5-1 or something. A little bit of a pumping for the Avs. As I said, Bednar has been very critical of what he's seen from this Colorado team. Yes, they are in that Central Division hunt, but I think there's so much more that can be unlocked with the Avalanche of what we've seen so far. So it's just a sleeping giant that I think will be awoken and will be terrifying once that happens. Before we breeze too much past Thursday, you got to talk about, yes, we know.
Hold on. On the Avs, Lehkonen got hurt really bad. He had to go to the hospital.
Yes, head right into the neck. Yes.
I know it's a huge. So
he went head first. It's a little scary.
I think we're still waiting on the extent of that. It's not like there's no movement or anything like totally scary like that. I think the player's like physically okay.
Was he?
I don't know about when he's ready to come back in the lineup, but
moved to long-term IR on Monday.
Yep. So that's a big hole for them. And we talked about Lehkonen last week. I think he's just playing such an important role for them. He's such a glue guy.
And we also talked about how they needed another top 6 forward to step up.
Now
they go down one.
Yeah.
Who's been one of their best.
It's tough. There's no question about it.
All right, Jacker, where were we heading there?
I was just going to talk about the kid, Connor Bedard. I think you saw one of the most impressive goals of the year, and it didn't even actually happen on the goal itself. It was the setup with Foligno and Bedard. I think he was racing to a puck with Kucherov. With your stick, I think I could pull a stick behind me, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want to hit the boys. But obviously your stick is shaped. Oh, you're going to hand it to me?
We're going to rip the stick out.
We're going to rip a little stick.
Don't break anything.
Pulling out the bit.
He's got the twig. He's got the twig.
So obviously your curve is like this. He flips it over, whips it across Kucherov's body, finds the puck over to Foligno, works his ass to the net, beats the puck or wins the battle to the race to the net, gets the pass, puts it on net. Yes, the Tampa defenseman ends up putting the puck in the net after the collision with the goalie. But this talent that we're seeing from these kids are freaking unbelievable.
Frickin'.
The fact that he was able to do that against one of the best players in the NHL in terms of a Kucherov. And
definitely one of the best defensive players in the NHL, too.
He's not yes, he's a little bit of, offensive more minded, but.
I'm kidding. No, he did it on Kucherov.
It's an unbelievable play. He had 2 in this game. He had, I think, 4 in this one. I think his second multi-point game of the season. The Bedard show is happening in Chicago, and it is so fun to watch and exciting, and where the future is. Korchinski finally scored his first one. He's buzzing. The youth movement is on the horizon. So
it's ideal. He's scoring points, and they're losing games, so it's a win-win.
Perfect, yeah. But also past the Lightning game, which was unbelievable. I mean, he had an assist in that game, another assist that was great.
Perry set up Perry for a great goal.
But then he follows this up against Florida in another loss. But
you see him take that puck.
One goal, he just goes. And the tweet I saw, which is how I first saw the goal, was Bedard has beast. It was not beast mode. It was something along the lines of anger management mode activated. Because he just aggressively comes in and rips. It was a hard stick lift. And he roofs it on a shot that not many players in the league make.
Bob was stunned.
One of those Crosby short-siders. It was just a roof job, and he was fired up after that. It was I saw the caption made sense because he was like, "Fuck you guys." It
was a fuck you play. I mean, he stole a puck at the bottom of the circle, stick check, took it, roofed it short side on a pretty hard angle on Sergei Bobrovsky. He was a great goaltender, and he gave the fans a show in Florida.
And his second goal in that Florida game. This was one where I saw the goal and I was like, he's coming. He's a right shot. He's coming down the left wing. The puck, he kind of beats the defenseman wide and then he kind of stops up short to get the shot off. And in so doing, he gets the defenseman's stick in his triangle. And he beats a goalie on the far side, right, just above the pad. Yep. And when I saw it, I just saw it, maybe on the phone or whatever it was. I said, interesting. It's kind of hard to tell how he tricked the goalie there. Just with a quick shot going far side like that. And I was like, that's Bedard. He's going to do it. And then it wasn't until Monday night, the GHL in the locker room, somebody was saying he hit that out of the air. And I saw another angle of it. In the process of him turning up and the defenseman getting his stick in his triangle, the defenseman actually tipped the puck up. And the defenseman tipped the puck up in the air. And so Bedard didn't release it from the ice. The puck went up in the air, and Bedard shot it from about 2 inches off the ice. And that's what changed the angle and freaked out the goalie. And he happened to put it just above the pad inside the post on the far side. But that was in that absolute nanosecond, fraction of a nanosecond. His ability to kind of see that, recognize that, and just the skill, the hands, the speed, all of that at 90 miles an hour, right? Or like the equivalent. It's just some special stuff. And hey, I mean, it's good for business across the board if Bedard's the real deal. And so far, so good.
And like the thing that I think is the most exciting about this, we knew his shot was going to play. Like everyone knew the shot was lethal. You're seeing him score and make plays in tight spaces. And that's how you win in this league. It's about like those quick plays. Like, yeah, the shot's great, but like we all rag on Austin Matthews for this. He's got one of the best shots in the league. Come playoff time, you can't get it off that much.
Yeah.
And he hasn't shown the best ability or the Stanley Cup level ability to win in those tight areas. But Bedard is showing, and obviously we're a long way off from that. You know, that discussion comes when it will come, you know. But those tight plays and making plays when they're not there, when you mess up, that's what's going to separate them eventually.
Anything else on the Hawks and the loose change? Because I've got a segue from Bedard.
9 goals, only one of them on the power play.
Good. Yeah, 5-on-5 goals are huge. And the hockey
I know,
IQ.
I'm just telling you, if he for a guy who's already on pace for 70-something plus points, you just know that it's going to continue. It's going to continue.
I mean, like,
Thank you for giving me the Hawks moment for a second.
No, but
I appreciate it.
I mean, Bedard should be talked about. And, like, also, we're talking about a guy, you bring up the on pace for it. If he hits his potential, should be a 150-point player. Like that's the level of player we're talking about here. Like, I think people are thinking about, this is Austin Matthews.
Scoring going up, right? It's the right kind of generation to be a big time scorer and producer. So when he came in, right, we were talking about what his player comp is, what kind of style of play it is. Is it like Patrick Kane? Is it like Austin Matthews? He's not really McDavid. It's not about the pure skating and speed. And I had a chance to watch the Boston Montreal Saturday, and Cole Caulfield, and I watched a little bit of the Habs, and I really dislike them, you know that. But Cole Caulfield is kind of like I think Cole Caulfield and Bedard are pretty good comps, although Bedard's I think ceiling is much higher. But those two players and player types, as far as getting the puck off, finding seams, finding ways to get open and doing other things. But I think that Bedard could take that to another level with equal playmaking to the goal scoring. And my last point there on Caulfield and the Habs. Bruins end up losing to Montreal Saturday night in Bell Center.
Can I have a question real quick? Did the Bruins go out and party Friday night or whatever it was? Because apparently they got in. I don't know if it was a made-up tweet or whatever I saw, but apparently the Bruins got after it, and it was caused to a very sluggish performance in Montreal.
If it was rookie party in Montreal Friday night, I'd love to hear that, because they looked like it Saturday. They played like dog shit, and Swayman kept him in the game, who's been unbelievable. Swayman keeps him around, but it's Bell Center. It's hockey night in Canada. It's a playoff atmosphere. 20,000 frogs screaming, doing their stupid fucking Olay chant. Up 1 goal, by the way. You're not allowed to do that unless you're up big. That's like a na-na-na-na, hey, goodbye. Like, you don't do that. But they were fucking buzzing, and they think that their team's relevant for the first time in a long time, and they're wrong. But
hey, 75-2.
My takeaway from that, it was same old Bruins. Same old Bruins. Playoff atmosphere, playoff Bruins. Chokey, lazy, lackluster. They lose to a worse team. Completely outplayed. Goals kept them in it, and they end up losing in overtime. And to me, I was getting flashbacks to the spring that night. But again, that's one of 3 losses all year. They're still dominating.
No, I thought you were going to be happy about the result, because the Bruins are off to too good of a start for you.
You're right. No.
So it's probably a good thing for you. Overall.
But it was frustrating. But it was frustrating to see some of the exact same problems, like defensive zone. I don't want to say the R word, but defensive zone. Let's just say mental lapses, and guys like Lindholm, who again, I think the future of the Bruins, it's going to be Lowry, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo, and they're going to ride that with goaltending, and they think that's the future of the next 8 years of the Bruins, and that's a pretty freaking good. That's going to be in the playoffs every year. You're not going to be a loser with that. I get it. And I need to be grateful for that. I need to be.
Yes.
That's pretty
Yes.
fucking spectacular. But Lindholm, the way that Lindholm plays, I've talked about it, but the way that Lindholm plays, it's his patience and slowing things down. And when things speed up, he makes these terrible mistakes. And he was up to his old tricks. Carlo, doing everything right, being in the right position, and then just fumble fucking the big time play and giving up goals. And I don't know. It was a little PTSD-ish.
3 losses on the campaign, 2 of them in overtime. God, I think yes,
But
just appreciate it. That's all I gotta say.
They got a bag skate after that Montreal game, and they deserve it. First of all, the schedule's ridiculous. They have more like 5 days off this week, which is preposterous. They have more time off than the teams going to Sweden. Anyway, the goalies are keeping them in it, and the goalies are keeping them afloat. But yeah, I think that's the end of my kind of little Habs minute there about what I'm, because McAvoy's still a little bit sloppy, but then. Wrapping up the loose change here, I just have a couple Buffalo notes from Tuesday night. Owen Power, first goal of the game, Dan Heinen scores off a rebound. Owen Power's in front of the net, and he just has zero awareness that Dan Heinen's standing there. Zero. He's looking at the puck, and he's not tying up sticks. And, he's, 20? Like, I get that there needs to be development there, but you can't be losing a puck battle in that front to Danton fucking Heinen. Excuse me. But, like...
Especially the size Power has, too.
Oh, my God. Like, it would be so easy if he just pulled his head out of his ass and played the man and played the stick, and then the Bruins just totally rolled them. Dahlin had a greasy, proactive reverse hit on Marchand, and objectively, I love that. Like, it was
a great play.
It was borderline interference, right? He hit him before he touched the puck. No, again, I'm not saying I would have called it. No, I'm not saying that at all. It would
have been a horrible call.
I'm not saying that at all, but, like, that's the edge that Dahlin's game has, which I think is great.
And quickly, I think as you're talking about Dahlin and Power, I think you've seen it finally as Dahlin grew into his body, grew into his NHL size through the years of his development. I think Power, for a guy who's 6'6", 218, I think that's where, I think we're on year 2 of Owen Power, maybe 3.
No, it's year 2.
It's going to take a little time. I mean, as a guy that big, you got to adjust.
I would just like this, I'd like to see a little bit more anchor in there.
And I think that's what you're seeing from Dahlin finally, and I think that's where it's going to take a little time to get that grittiness.
Dahlin's always had a little edge on him, though.
Yeah, it's funny. I
don't know, but and we Hedman is the one that Ross you always bring up, and I think it's a good comparison. How he took a while. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that the pissed off defenseman just pops out of nowhere. Maybe the better puck mover, the better
from
playing.
Mississauga, Alberta. I think there's a little.
No, Mississauga, Ontario.
Alberta.
Ontario.
It's
no,
AB.
That's what it says, Alberta.
That could be a fault on ESPN.
This guy better get a lot of shit for that.
Mississauga, Alberta. I don't think that's a place.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it would be kind of odd because I feel like it's named after like a tribe. And it's going to show you Ontario, but look up Mississauga, Alberta.
I'll continue on. I'll research.
Anyway.
It says Ontario.
It's a typo on ESPN. Oh, great job, ESPN. Yeah, just like you're putting the wrong fucking scores on the app.
If you can't get Mississauga right, you're going to miss half the NHL.
That's like a hotbed. Like there's a junior team there, like the Ice Dogs, right?
It's a
Don
huge
Cherry used to own that team.
hockey.
Anyway, no, I get it, right? Patience with Power, but like that's just that's I'm out on Buffalo. I'm out on Buffalo. They looked like shit. And they just kind of floating around, and I don't know, they got their asses kicked by the Bruins. They totally did. And it wasn't a competitive game. I know it's early, and I know that there's like a lot of talent on that team, and I love Cousins and all these things, but like it just like Thompson, he's taken so far a step back, and now he blocked a shot. I think he's got a hand or a thumb. And Tuck and like the whole Tuck, Skinner, Thompson thing last year. They've struggled right now, and seeing that they're just in Devin Levi.
It's been mostly the Ukko-Pekkanen.
And well, they yanked Levy at an interesting time actually. They were down 5. And they scored a goal to make it 5-1, and then they put in Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Thank you, Army. You've helped me with that. I think I'm good. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. They brought in Luukkonen after making it 5-1, which was interesting to me. I wasn't ready to bet the money line because the Bruins don't lose in the regular season, and Buffalo looked like shit. But I don't know. I think I'm proclaiming, I'm putting my stake in the ground. Buffalo's done. They're not going to be a playoff team.
So fair point, and I think the performance has shown that. I think as we talked about with the Eastern Conference, it's a little bit more up for grabs. I think they sit at 15 points. I think you're looking at 18 or 19 being the wild card cutoff at this point right now. So yes, it hasn't looked great. I think you got to look at it and see.
Ottawa's going to cuck them. I'm all in on the Sens. We talked about it.
What about the Wings?
The Wings are in front of them. The Canadians are in front of them. They've got a tough road. There's no question about it. I just think it's a road that hasn't been completely written off, and I think it'll be interesting to see the rumor train of Patrick Kane. I think Buffalo is one of those teams in talks, but I think with their recent performances and now knowing that Tage Thompson is hitting the shelf, you got to think that Kane's probably not thinking Buffalo is an option
It
anymore.
would be a horrible call.
No, that's you
The
got
roster
to
is
also
horrible.
the Kane news, right? Rangers are off the table.
Rangers are off the table.
Kane news.
He met with Toronto, sounding like the first team. Like I said, he was training in Ontario, and
Classic Toronto.
it'll be interesting to see what happens with Patrick Kane on that movement. Final thoughts on loose change before we go to Alex.
Final loose change on that Bruins Sabres game. I've been pumping up Pavel Zacha. I think he's been the Bruins MVP so far outside of the goalies. First period on the rush. He goes, again, this was on the rush, right? Like a little bit of a slowdown. And he rips a pass the entire length of the ice from outside the circle to outside the circle. And Pasternak one times at full speed, right in the top corner. It was like one of the prettiest, most disgusting goals I've ever seen. It was like that old NHL 2006 one-timer. Like not like the recent, like the old school square as shoot, X's pass. It was that filthy and it looked that easy. And that was one of the prettier one-timer setup plays I've ever seen. And I think it bears commentary. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave it there on that game. For anybody else has loose change, the only other game I've got is Yotes Stars. Caught the third period of that one last night.
Yeah, I have a So on that note, Matt Duchene looks great. I think he just needs a quick shout out. He looks fantastic. It almost
Looks
like
like a
at
great
times,
move.
and part of
Low,
this is
cheap.
the matchups, but it looks like the best line on the team at times in games. And it's not. But they've been off to a really hot start without Robo doing much. And I think I believe in Robo. He's put up too many points last year to like expect him not to be good again this year. So yeah, that team looks good. Harley did just go down. Pod favorite.
So then they have
But,
to play
the
Hanley.
scary
So
hit
now they have
with-
to play Hanley, the journeyman,
Duchene-
44
Yeah,
instead
but
of 50.
Lundqvist-
Dumaine put him into the boards, I think. And Duhaime in Minnesota.
On Minnesota,
I think.
Duhaime, yeah.
It was a scary hit.
Duhaime's a
But
termite.
unfortunately.
Lundqvist is now going to get his top 4 minute opportunity.
Oh, yeah. No, he's playing
So
a
shout
lot.
out Paul.
Yeah, no, Paulie's all over that. And I want to also give Paulie and the Stars faithful a big shout out. The Stars fans in the American Airlines building in Dallas, the presence of mind and the long memory. Every time Dumba touched the puck,
They got him.
Boo!
Good for
It
them.
was impressive. And as they're doing all of this, like I'm sure Dumba's saying, I love it. If you're getting booed, you're doing something right, blah, blah, blah. But Pavelski comes flying in, and he moves the puck, and Pavelski sticks an elbow out and just drops him. Not in the face or anything, like we're kind of right in the chest, but it was more of a shoulder. But he got an open ice hit and dropped Dumba, and the crowd went nuts. Because Dumba had the puck, they're booing, and then Pavelski comes flying in and I don't want to say buries him, but dropped him on his back, and the crowd went nuts. And that was kind of a cool moment going back to last postseason. We all remember.
Continue on, Armor.
Couple other teams I want to point out.
Before we leave the Stars Yotes, well, just Michelli ripped a gorgeous one-timer to sucker.
Michelli, I think we're all
Michelli
on
looks
Michelli
really
hype train.
good. Looks very good.
Zuccarello 2.0, I'm telling you.
Also, before we leave the Stars, Wyatt Johnson, another
he's
guy that
incredible
Paulie was on, and this guy he's going to be a future star.
It's just sometimes hard to see what a player will become and see what that version looks like, and we're seeing it now. And there's still more to grow, but he looks great, and I think they're kind of limiting him with
He's
who
only
with.
playing 16,
Playing with
17
Ben
minutes
and Daddy?
Yeah.
And I don't like that combo for playmaking. They're kind of both plods. No disrespect, but they don't move that well.
Right.
Dodano moves.
Not that well right now.
Daddy,
Compared
Daddy.
to Johnson, it just seems like he's the only player of his caliber on that line right now.
And it's a credit to him. He's driving that line.
He
He's
looks great.
producing.
He looks great.
Let's see, really quick. Oh, God, just a pathetic effort from Ryan Suter on one of the goals. Lawson Krause just went right around him, and it looked like beer league, similar to that Shattenkirk play in the Boston game. The Dumba boos. Stars again dominating the face-off circle. That's part of why I liked them last year. But I'm sticking with the Stars have missed their window.
Yeah, I'm not with you.
I'm sticking with that take. I don't think that they're tough enough because we saw our termites running around for Arizona. And, oh, my God, Pavelski almost ended this one in regulation as they were pressuring. And the damn Coyotes, right? They make this push. They get that goal I just mentioned, Michelli to Zuccarello, and then they have a complete breakdown. I couldn't tell if it was a line change, but they have a complete breakdown, and they leave Sagan wide open at the far blue line. He catches a seed, comes in, sick move to the backhand, ties the game, goes to overtime, and then 42 seconds in, Sagan again makes a great play on a 2-on-1 and gets a pass over to Duchesne, who finished it 42 seconds in. So, I mean, big for the Stars if Sagan's getting his game back and starting to produce and kind of feeling it, like we talked about, healthy and matured in his role. But those were my kind of loose change notes from that Yotes Stars third period.
Yeah, I like it. Couple other teams. Blues. I really like Robert Thomas. He's playing with Buchnevich.
Yep.
Buchnevich.
For some reason, Jack Edwards likes to say Buchnevich, and it's like he butchers it, and he just says it constantly. It's so frustrating, but I barely listen to Nesson, as you know.
Yeah, but I like that combo. I like. I don't think this is a playoff team, but
I haven't watched a single Blues.
Blues are owed a little watching.
I watched them against the Lightning, and I've liked Robert Thomas for a while, but like every time I watch him, I like him. So like the more games you can put on tape without really missing on my end is just keeps boosting your stock.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they have a little excitement there. I don't know what their upside is. I don't see enough talent there. One team I do think has some talent, and they're showing it a little bit more, is Winnipeg Jets.
The
Obviously were horrible at the end of last year, but this top line is getting going here, and Ehlers is getting going a little bit. Kyle Connor's been lighting the lamp a lot past couple of weeks. Scheifele looks faster this year than last year. I don't know what the deal is.
There's a little more comfortability knowing he's staying, knowing he's there, I think.
I get that, but he looks great. Like I've been very impressed by Scheifele and Connor too. So
Morrissey,
this is a potential playoff
14
team. I think the Winnipeg Jets are a potential playoff team.
I know better than to bet against you and the Jets.
Yeah, and Helly's been good.
Again,
nothing
I'm asking for completion on this gosh darn slap bet from last year.
Let's put it on. We'll put it on the agenda for next.
Needs to be on the books. To be on the books. That's all.
But yeah, I think Winnipeg looks good and fun, and like Kyle Connor and Scheifele are both like pretty top tier forwards.
Oh yeah.
Not many teams have those. I think that goes under the radar a lot of times.
Those are two. I think Scheifele's probably going to be on Team Canada. Well, it's tough. It's tough because of the time.
I would have to look at it.
But Kyle Connor is on Team USA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's probably the top two line.
Yeah. So, I mean.
PP1.
For those kinds of countries, right, that's a huge statement of how good the player is, more so than all-star appearances. Like that. That's
totally
a big deal.
No, it's good, and when they're rolling, they can carry teams to wins. Like,
side note, I'm so frustrated.
Dylan DeMello on this team, he's stepped into a decent role for this team. It's been a charge of the vets, and I think you get consistent goaltending with the always consistent Connor Hellbuck.
But he hasn't even been great to start the year. He hasn't been Hellebuck.
He's under a 900 save percentage, so yes, fair. 7-4-1 for about almost 3 goals a game. Yeah, I don't know. It's an exciting start for Winnipeg fans that probably weren't expecting it, but the depth has been there, and they're getting the scoring. Iafallo has been the better look than Velarde. I don't know if I would have said that, but I guess I haven't watched enough of those two, but. It's been fun stuff for the Winnipeg Jets. Final thoughts? What else do you got?
Yeah, I still take Velarde all day, but I hear you.
No, I'm just the stats. That's all I'm telling. But final loose change thoughts? Or you?
That's kind of what I got. We covered a lot of the teams that I've been.
No, this has been one of our better loose changes. I think we got into it and we talked about a good amount of the teams, and another fun week in the National to look forward to. Back to the Termite of the Week, to the Woodshed, to the Miles Wood show. What we saw last week, the boys. The prep wasn't there, so I'll take it. I'll take it on the chin. There might be some high criticism here.
Last time you gave that lead in, you dropped Liam O'Brien on us, big tuna. So
I guarantee you that your eyes are going to be open.
I think you're sandbagging us on these, but
Charlie McAvoy, best player on the Termite squad, but I think this grittiness you're seeing it. He's got a little piss and vinegar, and I think a little dirtiness to him that I didn't expect. I know it's a way too high premium of a player, and I know Ross thinks I'm missing the bag here, but I like the dirtiness that we're seeing out of McAvoy. I think it's a little termitey.
I don't even know what to say.
It's
a top 5 defense in the NHL.
I know.
It's a miss on the concept. That's my problem here.
I think you're seeing the dirtiness. I think you're seeing the physical. I think you're seeing a pissed off McAvoy that we have been seeing the last few years. I think he's seeing that the clock is ticking.
I love that you guys like Jack's. Remember, like we like to bust Jack's chops. Like Jack's hot button issue is like Patrick Kane's washed up, and like we say that, and like Jack gets pissed. You guys think calling McAvoy dirty like gets under my skin? It really does.
No, I'm not trying to get under your skin. I think he's got a little piss and vinegar that is termite.
He totally does. He's.
And yes, he is a top 5 defenseman, but I think it can't be ignored. You saw it. You had a 4-game suspension this year. You saw the little play on Tage Thompson where he lifted the leg and potentially ended his knee, but doesn't seem to be the scenario. But
it wasn't a leg check. It was like a tripping play, a late second reaction kind of thing.
It's
a 2-minute minor for tripping, and I don't even think they called it.
He's on pace to pass a career high penalty minutes. I think you're just seeing a different version of McAvoy than what we've seen in the years. I know you think I missed the program.
He's just way too good.
I get it. I think he's your number one player on this team.
Last week we talked about like a good indication of termite, hearing their name a lot and having no contributions to the stat sheet.
Right.
That is the traditional termite.
If
correct.
your face,
I'm changing the game.
If your face is on a mural outside the stadium, you're not a termite. Like we love Miles, but like there aren't any Miles Wood posters inside the Pepsi Center or whatever they call it in Denver.
Not yet. And he's got 5 or 6 more years to go.
Yeah, that's right. This and 5 more.
But no, I know it's a highly controversial termite pick, and
these are nominations, right?
Exactly.
And we had a pre-pod commitment.
Ross's homework for the Thanksgiving break.
We're gonna get back, and we're gonna have a dedicated termite segment. Maybe we'll do a side termite pod, where we're gonna bring all the nominees from last season and this
Pile
season
it together, and
we're gonna start doing. Yeah, we're gonna
do that.
Make a roster
for the All-Star break.
Ooh, love it. Love
we
it.
We can make our All-Star.
Seriously, let the fancy boys talk about the fancy pants All-Stars. We're going to focus on termites at the All-Star break. I love it. I love it.
I will say also, just as a quick anecdote, I actually went to the zoo today. Free zoo in Chicago, pretty sweet.
Correct.
60 and sunny, so I took a little stroll. I went and saw a recreation of a termite mound, is what they call them, where the colony lives. Big mound. It was very insightful. It made me reflect on the pod, reflect on the termites. I was kind of hoping for not Charlie McAvoy to bring this up, but we're here. But anyways, I'm just saying, it reinvigorated my termite love. Not that it ever wavered, but it was cool to go to their roots, or their mound, I guess.
The mound in the roots of the tree, of the shed. Maybe we'll call the roster the mound.
The mound. Well, that's where they live. So I think the mound is...
Who's going to make the mound?
Should be
we called it the colony. What's the difference between a colony and a mound?
We're not...
No, the mound is like because they build mounds in like earth instead of getting...
That's
like
ants,
when they don't,
bro. That's ants.
So I went to the termite... Dude.
Who are you talking to here? This is Steve. This is the Steve Irwin of termites.
If you want to see the photo, I sent it to everyone.
We're going to get it up on our socials.
Like the photo is pretty clear. It's a mound.
So that's built into the display. Yes, I understand.
Termite mound.
Got it. So the mound is the physical structure.
Yeah. I think it's
and the colony is like the locker room, right? So like.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough,
the colony is the group.
There is a king termite.
A king and a queen.
And the king's only role is to fertilize the queen.
Oh, so he's
doesn't
like a stud.
have the power.
He's like a stud.
Are we giving the K or the Q?
Hold on.
Woody?
No, Woody's
the Q.
Ooh, wait, hold on.
Woody's the queen.
Woody's the
queen.
Woody's the Q.
Woody has already been established.
Is Liam the K then?
Well, we'll settle that in our termite pod.
Yeah.
To be determined.
This is another very important
I love the
factor.
king termite. He's just a stud. He's just a stud. It's all about his love juice.
But this is a big factor that I didn't think we've recognized yet. There are 2 types of non-king and queen termites. You have the soldiers that are defense. They defend the mound. And you have the workers who build inside. So you have 2 types of termites, right?
It's like the scout recon, and then you have like the engineers that like build the bridges and enable a real military
this is
force.
Just straight up on the wall. You got the spears. They're jabbing. They're like, don't climb our wall. Don't climb our wall.
Termite of the week.
And they have bigger. They're actually genetically different too. Like the soldiers have pinchers, and there's workers which look different.
More mandible, limbs to help with the construction efforts.
Yeah, totally different grouping.
This is huge. This is huge.
Big news.
This is huge for roster construction, right? I mean, we
got to take into consideration.
We need our colony to have a diverse group of skill sets.
Who's our scouts? Who's our engineers?
So I did look also. This could be a future. Maybe we'll do a clip.
So maybe instead of forwards and defensemen, we have soldiers and engineers.
I think we should. Yeah.
What do they call the engineers again? Workers. Soldiers and workers.
But what was cool
I like
about
calling
this,
them engineers, though.
Right, but I also love scrapping our whole forward defense model and
think
going
this is
to
good.
soldiers and workers.
Yeah, don't separate the locker room. Like, other than that.
Yeah.
Keep the group together.
But
Keep
we
the
can
group
actually
together.
go visit the zoo. It's not actual termites that live there, but it's a recreation of a mound.
Maybe
And
we
it actually let
announce
you go inside the mound.
the all slot shot termite squad in front of the mound at the Brook.
I think we just hop into the mound and talk for a little bit.
I'll let
about
you get in
termites.
there. I'll let you get in there. I'm going to stay from the side. I'll let you two go.
Okay.
Fully
you
on
can
board.
film. You
Fully
can
on
film.
board.
Ross and I will hop in the mound.
That is Termite of the Week, the wood show, the woodshed, the colony, the mound, as we've just learned. It's time for our final segment of the night, the Saturday picks. The boys have finally pieced one together and put a parlay that was winning last week with a few picks, and so the parlay goes to 1-5 after a tough start. The boys have recovered, hopefully. So, with that being said, Alex and I are 4-1. Ross goes to 2-3 on his hunt to 500. Alex, kick it off. Who's your pick for Saturday picks?
Yeah, we're gonna get hot here. It's just puck luck. Shooting percentage is gonna come up here. I'm gonna go the New York Rangers crossing the river to New Jersey,
That's right, the Hudson River.
the Hudson, and they're gonna beat the Devils.
It's going to be a very blue crowd there at the Rock.
Good action, good money on that
Potentially.
one. I like it.
I hope there's good money, but I'm not sure. I don't think any of the centers are gonna be playing for New Jersey.
We'll see.
You got to think the Rangers are favorites there.
I'm going to pick up on the vibe that we started the podcast off of. I picked them last week. I'm going to stick there. The Lightning look human and very human indeed, and that's why I think the Edmonton Oilers are going to go into Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida, and beat the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I love that pick. It's a matinee, which can be a little tricky, but I very much like that pick, 4 p.m. Eastern game. I'm looking at the lineup here, and I loved Senators at home against the Wild. Then I realized the game's going to be in Sweden, so I'm going to stay away from that one. Looking at the lineup, and a little bit of a surprise down there in our nation's capital in an election year. I'm going to go with the Capitals beating the Blue Jackets at home in the Verizon Center. I think the Caps have been playing well. I haven't watched a ton of them. But I saw enough of the Blue Jackets last night to go against them. So I'm going to say Caps over Jackets. That's
Nice.
a Rusty Saturday pick.
I like it. The parlay looking to go to 2-5. Well, knock on wood. That wraps up a phenomenal episode of Slot Shot Podcast, a hockey podcast. Closing thoughts from the boys.
Really stoked on our Nat Geo spotlight on termites, and shout out to Arm for putting in the work and getting down there to the zoo for some real insight and field reporting.
Hey, you had the invite. We all did, but
We don't need to go there, but there's more to come in that sense, and really excited about the momentum that we're building. And hey, it's another week down in the National. Schedule's going to light up around Thanksgiving, so we'll keep our listeners posted about the pod schedule. But another good day with the boys, and that's really all I got. What about you, Army?
Yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed listening. Check out our Instagram. I'm sure Sif will give full details soon here in a sec, but we're going to try to get some more quick content out for you guys, And you can interact with us, comment, have fun, give us
Hop in
your
the
takes.
DMs.
I'll
The
be
boys all
in
have
the
access.
comments.
Let's get greasy in there. Let's muck it
Call
up.
out
And
some
on
takes.
that note, we've started our own Instagram page. We've started our own YouTube channel. Those will be very active in the upcoming days. We'll have those out to you guys tomorrow on all platforms that you catch Slot Shot Podcast on. But give us a follow on Instagram at Slot Shot Podcast. Toss the YouTube channel a follow just under the Slot Shot Podcast name as well. Give the boys a follow at armdog_SS, at Rusty Pedroia on Twitter. Give me a follow at SiffyMan. The Slot Shot Twitter will be it's in works. It's in construction. It'll be there at some point. But lots of fun things happening at Slot Shot Podcast, a hockey podcast. Thanksgiving break is on the horizon. The NHL does take a few days. The boys we'll have that scheduled to you guys here soon. But if this is our last one between now and Thanksgiving, we hope for our American listeners to have a happy Thanksgiving, and same to you boys, and we'll catch you guys on the horizon.